Hey ArcheryTalk, this is Lucas, and today I've got my long-term review of the Hoyt Invicta target bow. The very first bow I ever bought was a Hoyt target bow, so ever since I've always been eager to try out the new ones, and this year was clearly no exception. As soon as I saw the Invicta, I wanted to get my hands on one, and Hoyt was kind enough to send this one my way for some testing. Before we get started here, if you could please like, share, and subscribe, it would help the channel an awful lot. Now let's get down to specs. The Invicta 37 has an axle-to-axle length of 37¼ inches, a brace height of 7 inches, and an IBO rated speed of 330 feet per second. I've got this bow outfitted with a B3 Archery Exact 3D sight, a Hamskea Trinity arrow rest, Doinker Platinum High Mod stabilizers, and a Specialty Archery Podium peep. As Hoyt's flagship target bow, this bow does carry a fairly hefty MSRP of about $1,800, although pricing is going to vary from dealer to dealer. Fit and finish, as you might expect, is classic Hoyt. It's a high-end, no flaws anywhere you can see. They just know how to make a great-looking target bow. I probably prefer the general shape and appearance of the Prevail a little more than the Invicta, but that's just personal preference. It's the bow is looking flawless in this green color here, and I have no real complaints to bring up. The grip is also unchanged from the Prevail. That's where it was introduced. This is a modular grip system. I think each bow comes with 4 different angles. And the grip itself is exactly what I'm looking for in a target bow. Nice and flat on the front and fairly narrow. And it's really just a repeatable grip for me that I have. I like to shoot and fits my hand very well. As discussed in a prior video, the draw cycle on the Invicta is very smooth with little to no dump at all into the valley. It's a little bit more aggressive with these SVX cams than the DCX or the X3 or GTX before it, but it offers a very kind of a smooth and linear pull, despite the fact that it's maybe a little bit stiffer overall. It's been a bit of an adventure shooting the Invicta this year. I would say hands down I have shot more 10s with this bow on average than any of the other target bows I've got in for testing this year, but I'd also say I've shot more bad shots, which basically is to say that if I do my part with my form and keep everything solid and pull through the shot like I'm supposed to, the results are great. They speak for themselves, but when I let slack off in some part of my shot process, things can go sideways in a hurry. And maybe that's the shorter length that is a little less forgiving than maybe the Prevail I shot, but I'm shooting more 10s, so it's hard to complain about it. I'll give you an example. Just the other week, I shot an interesting round. It was a 720 kind of feeder style round, and a full half of my arrows were 10s, which for me is very good. I'm not a pro-level archer by any means, but I'm happy to get about half my arrows to be 10s. But then I had just as many 8s as I had 9s. It's super strange. So the 9s and 10s I'm pretty happy with, but the 8s, it's weird to have that many 8s for me when I have that many 10s. Usually if I'm off the rails, I'm all the way off the rails. I'm not hitting half my shots right where I want to. So it's a bit of a roller coaster, but I think that's more on me than the bow, because I'm a little bit inconsistent usually at full draw with how I'm pulling through a shot. So I really do think that if you're the type of guy who is very strong and consistent on the shot, you're going to have excellent results with the Invicta. A pleasant surprise with the Invicta for me this year has been the speed. With a 350 grain gold tip platinum pierce arrow, and this bow set at 60 pounds and 30 1/8 inches of draw length, I saw an average speed of 298 feet per second. That is the fastest of any of the target bows I shot this year, and that tells me this would make a very good unknown 3D bow. You would have no trouble, I would think, especially if you're willing to go a little higher in weight, getting this bow up to 300 feet a second, even if your draw length is more in the 28 and 28.5 ranges, as long as you use a lighter arrow, or if you want to use a heavier arrow and you have a longer draw length, this would be no trouble at all for that type of shooting. As for tuning, the Invicta 37 has been pretty much ready to go right out of the box. I will say this was a demo bow before I got it, but with a few tweaks, I was getting bullet holes through paper with no problem whatsoever. I will say after about 6 or 7 weeks, I noticed my groups weren't looking like I wanted them to, and so I ran it through paper again and saw that my tune had changed a fair bit. So I added about a twist and a half to my right yoke, and everything fell back in line, no problem at all. The bottom line is the Hoyt Invicta 37 is a sensational shooting bow when I do my part. It's not maybe the most forgiving bow I've got this year for testing, but the all-out accuracy when the shooter does his job is probably second to none. And if you're in the market for a high-level target bow with a little bit of speed behind it, you'd be wise to go visit Hoyt.com and learn some more.